Okay, class, very quickly lang in your study guide, it gives you examples of differences in accounting treatment under the standards under your IFRS on one hand and US GAAP on the other. If you take a master's in accounting class, the discussion on US GAAP would actually take a full semester. So that's why in your undergraduate studies, the focus really would just be on to point out uh, differences without really going into detail. And that is essentially what will also happen in your CMA exam. The focus again would be on the differences between the standard and your US GAAP. And in your study guide, it already gives you several examples of differences between the standard and US GAAP. And I hope as you will go over the study guide, you would say, yeah, we've encountered this before when we discussed the treatment for research and development costs. We've encountered this one when we discussed the impairment. We've discussed this one, so on and so forth. Okay. But again, we'll refresh our memory by answering the practice questions. Okay, but again, find time to go over the study guide for this topic. Okay, so now first question there. Which of the following, are you there? Which of the following statements concerning asset impairment under IFRS and US GAAP is correct? Okay, first choice, US GAAP and IFRS both use a two-step test for asset impairment. Letter B, US GAAP uses a two-step test for asset impairment, while IFRS uses a one-step test for asset impairment. Letter C, US GAAP and IFRS both use a one-step test for asset impairment. D, US GAAP uses a one-step test for asset impairment, while IFRS uses a two-step test for asset impairment. In our discussion in your long-term assets class, we've mentioned that US GAAP uses a two-step test for asset impairment. So basically, you can already eliminate letter C and letter D. So the question now on your mind should be, what does the IFRS use? Okay, and as I've also mentioned before, you will only make one comparison under the IFRS, and that is your recoverable amount and your book value or your carrying amount. It's just that the recoverable amount under IFRS may either be the value in use or the, what are your options for your recoverable amount under the IFRS class? Either your value in use or your fair value less cost to sell. Okay, but basically, under the standard class, you're only using a one-step test. You'll just be comparing the recoverable amount with the carrying amount or the book value. So the answer number one is letter B. Okay. By the way, as a possible essay question under this topic class, you could be simply asked to enumerate examples. Give 3 examples of difference in accounting treatment under the US GAAP and your IFRS. Okay, so again, it would help you if you go over the study guide and try to pick out 3 to 5 differences. Okay, you can choose the shorter examples. Okay, those that you can easily remember. Next, number 2, under US GAAP, which of the following expenditures qualifies for asset capitalization? Letter A, cost of materials used in prototype testing. Letter B, costs of testing a prototype and modifying its design. Letter C, salaries of engineering staff developing a new product. Letter D, legal costs associated with obtaining a patent on a new product. So basically, we're dealing here with costs associated with a development or creation of an intangible asset. And we have emphasized this before when again we discuss your long-term assets, that a primary difference between your IFRS and your US GAAP is the treatment on your development cost. Okay, for both US GAAP and your IFRS, research costs are to be expensed. Okay, they differ only on the treatment of your development cost. Under US GAAP, development costs will also be expensed. So that's why we mentioned before that the treatment under US GAAP is simpler because you don't have to remember a lot of things. Both research and development costs will have to be expensed. Okay, the treatment under the standards is actually more, uh, what's the better term? More, it's not as straightforward under US GAAP because what's the treatment for your development cost under the standards? It's not even just one treatment. You will have to test first or determine whether there is already technical feasibility. Development costs before technical feasibility would be expense. Okay, but again, under your standards, it's possible for your development costs to be capitalized. Oh, but that is only if there is already technical feasibility. But again, under US GAAP, it's a lot simpler. No need to determine whether there is technical feasibility. Both research and development costs will be expensed. Okay, but in our choices class, you're not given those terminologies outright. You will have to determine whether these costs qualify as research and development costs or whether these costs are part already of your directly attributable cost. Because under US GAAP, only the directly attributable cost would be capitalized. Okay, so let's go over the choices. So there A, cost of materials used in prototype testing. So definitely this is still under development cost. Okay, if you can recall in your financial accounting classes, you would have to determine whether this cost is a research cost or whether this cost is a development cost. Here for your CMA examination, it will not be that difficult anymore because you do not have to distinguish between research and development because both will have to be expense. But obviously letter A is already development because you're already testing your prototype. Okay, but again, nonetheless, this will still have to be expense. Letter B, costs of testing a prototype and modifying its design. Again, you're already dealing with prototypes. This would be considered as a development cost. Okay, but again, whether research or development cost, it will be expense. Salaries of engineering staff developing a new product. Okay, this can be considered still part of your research because they are still trying to develop a new product. Okay, so but nonetheless, again, this will still have to be expense. And what we are trying to look for is the cost that will have to be capitalized. Okay, so for both US GAAP and your IFRS, beyond the development cost, the directly attributable cost for the asset would already be capitalized. And as you can recall in your financial accounting classes, registration costs would normally be the cost that would be considered as directly attributable cost in obtaining the intangible asset. And that is essentially what letter D is. Letter D is a registration cost or costs related to obtaining a patent on a new product. Okay, so that means letter D would be capitalized. So the answer number 2 would be letter D. I hope you found this question simpler class and you were just simply using your existing knowledge on this topic already. Number 3, using this approach, the company should value its inventory at, what's the question here? A company uses the IFRS lower of cost or NRV rule to value its inventory of frozen foods. The company applies this method on a total inventory basis, not directly to each item of frozen food. Information on the frozen food inventory at December 31 of the year just ended is provided below. Okay. So again, we'll be using lower of cost or the net realizable value. Are we given with our net realizable value? The answer is yes, which is how much? 100,000, and then you compare it with the cost, because under the LCNRV, you compare the the net realizable value and the cost. Okay, but again, what cost would be relevant here? Is the replacement cost relevant? The answer is no. Again, it would most likely be your acquisition cost. Now, out of all these figures, which one would represent your acquisition cost? It would be the weighted average cost, which is your 90,000. And of course, you will choose the lower amount. And the answer is 90,000. Okay, then you might ask, what's the point of this question under this topic? Because under your IFRS class, you're supposed to do it by item. Okay, but here, what did the company do? The company applies the LCNRV method on a total inventory basis. Okay, if you can recall your past two, the LCNRV test will have to be applied on a class, on an item by item basis. But here, they're doing it on a lump sum basis. That's why it's again a lot simpler. Okay, if you have a lot of kinds of inventory, you will have to apply the test of LCNRV for each class or each type of inventory. But again, under US GAAP, you can just use the lump sum amount for all your items of inventory. Okay, again, the answer here is letter C. Okay, but if we're trying to find a similarity, kasi both would be using lower of cost or NRV. It's just on the application of the level of application for the LCNRV, whether it's on an item by item basis or on a lump sum basis. Number 4, which of the following statements concerning the accounting for inventory under IFRS and US generally accepted accounting principles is correct? So we're looking for a similarity between the, we're looking for the statements that would be true under IFRS and GAAP. First choice, companies cannot use LIFO under US GAAP or IFRS. Letter B, companies can use LIFO under US GAAP and IFRS. Letter C, companies can use LIFO under US GAAP but not under IFRS. Letter D, companies cannot use LIFO under US GAAP but can under IFRS. Because as far as you can remember, in your EC 1101 and in your financial accounting classes, wherein we have been using the standards class, it has been emphasized that under the IFRS, you cannot use last in, first out. Okay, but under the US GAAP class, there's situations where they will allow the use of your last in, first out. So the answer here then is letter C. Companies can use LIFO under US GAAP but not under IFRS. Number 5, in 20X1, the ABC company purchased inventory for 50,000. In December of 20X1, ABC wrote down the inventory to 35,000 because it believed its value was permanently impaired. In the first quarter of 20X2, the value of the inventory increased to 51,000. How would ABC value the inventory at the end of the first quarter of 20X2 in accordance with US GAAP and IFRS respectively? So this problem class will demonstrate a stark difference between US GAAP and the IFRS, particularly on the treatment of reversal on inventory write-down class or reversal of loss on inventory write-down. Both US GAAP and IFRS would obviously write down your inventories if the NRV is lower than the cost. Because again, they both use lower of cost and NRV. The difference now is what would they do if ever the NRV recovers, if the net realizable value goes up after it has went down. Okay? I'm not sure if we've mentioned this in our discussion in inventories, but under US GAAP, it does not recognize any reversal of inventory loss on inventory write-down. Okay, there will be no gain on reversal. There will be no gain on reversal under US GAAP. I hope you're familiar with the account gain on reversal class. When you write it down to the NRV, you will recognize a loss on inventory write down. But if ever the NRV recovers, then you can recognize a gain on reversal, similar to your impairment. After all, your inventory write down is just a form of asset impairment. Okay, so under US GAAP, okay, the first one being asked, even if the fair value or the net realizable value recovers class, the carrying amount of the asset will remain at 35,000. It was originally acquired at 50, but it was written down to 35. But even though the net realizable value recovers to 51, no gain reversal will be recognized under the US GAAP, so the carrying amount will still remain at 35,000. So your answer here would be either A, B, or D. Now, under the IFRS, do we allow the recognition of a gain reversal? Do we allow the reversal of a previously recognized loss on inventory write-down? The answer is yes. And what happened in this problem? It was written down to 35, but subsequently, the value recovered and increased to 51,000. Okay, so some of you might think that the answer would be letter B. Okay, but a very important concept to remember, class, not just for inventory write-down, but for all kinds of impairment. While the standards allow recovery of your previously recognized impairment losses, class, the gain on reversal should not exceed the previously recognized impairment loss. How much was the write-down when it was written down to 35,000 class? From 50 to 35, it has a loss on inventory write-down of 15. Okay, and as a rule, your gain on reversal cannot go beyond the amount of loss that you are supposed to reverse. Okay, when we're saying reversal, then it should not go beyond the amount that you're supposed to reverse. So if you will increase it to 51, from 35 to 51, if you will increase it to 51, that will require an increase of 16,000. But that cannot be because the amount of loss you have previously recognized is only 15. So basically, the maximum amount for which your previously written down asset can improve to class would just be its previous carrying amount. It cannot go beyond its previous carrying amount before it was impaired. Okay, so the answer here would be letter D. Under US GAAP, it will remain at 35,000. Under the IFRS, it will be increased back to its previous carrying amount before it was impaired. So the answer here is 35 and 50,000. Okay, I hope you can include this all in your stock knowledge. Number 6, all of the following statements concerning impairment are correct except under US GAAP, impairment is considered at the individual asset level, while under IFRS impairment, impairment is considered at the cash generation level unit. This is true, class. If you can remember, if you have a single asset, you can divide it or you can group it into CGU or your cash generation units. Letter B, under US GAAP, goodwill is independently tested for impairment, while under IFRS, goodwill is not independently tested for impairment. Okay, and this is true. You can also remember that under US GAAP, your goodwill will be amortized. Letter C, reversals of previous assets impairments are not allowed under either US GAAP or IFRS. Okay, we've elaborated on this one in the previous problem. Okay, reversals are not allowed under US GAAP, but it is allowed under IFRS. So the answer here would be letter C. Letter D, under US GAAP, depreciable assets are tested for impairment in a two-step test, while under the IFRS, your cash generating units are tested for impairment in the one-step test. Okay, that's correct. Number 7, a company grants its employees 180,000 in stock-based compensation. The grant will evenly vest over 4 years. How much expense may be recorded under US GAAP and IFRS respectively in the year of grant? Okay, so under US GAAP class, stock-based compensation may be recognized over the service period using the straight line method. But under IFRS, it is recognized over the service period using the accelerated method. I don't think we have time to discuss the method used in IFRS class. But under US GAAP, you will just be using straight line class. Okay, your answer here would be of course either A, B, or D, because 180,000 divided by 4, you will have 45,000. Okay, so you'll notice a trend here, class. The treatment under US GAAP would just be a lot simpler compared to the ones provided in the standard. For the IFRS class, the answer there would be 93,750. Okay, that's computed by, for year 1, you will have 45,000, and then for year 2, that's, you divide 45 by 2, you will have 22,500. And then for year 3, you divide 45,000 by 3, you will have 15. And then for year 4, you will have, this is all for year 1, kasi for the year 4 computation, you will divide 45,000 by 4, you will have 11,250. If you add all these 4, you will get a total of 93,750. Number 8, a multinational company maintains its financial records under both IFRS and US GAAP. Last year, the company determined its inventory was impaired because demand for its product collapsed when a competitor launched a new product with innovative features. As a result, the company wrote down inventory with an original carrying amount of 500,000 to 0. This year, however, government authorities unexpectedly announced that the competitor's product was defective and the product was removed from the market. As a result, the company's products were again in demand, and the company estimated its net realizable value to be 750,000 at the end of the current quarter. How should the company record this new development in the current quarter? First is IFRS. What will happen under IFRS? Are we going to have a reversal? Because we're using, your CMA exam is using the term write-up class. In your intermediate accounting classes, we do not use this term. But obviously, write-up would be the opposite of your write-down. Okay, so basically, this would be a reversal of your inventory loss on inventory write-down. So what will happen? Should your answer be either C or D in this problem, class? No, because again, when you recover, class, when you reverse previously recognized impairment loss, it should not result in a carrying amount greater than its old or original carrying amount, class. So letter C and letter D should be out of the choices. Okay, and we know that gain on reversal is recognized under the IFRS, so letter A should also not be your answer of choice. Okay, so the only choice that is acceptable here would be letter B. Under IFRS, 500,000 write-up of the inventory. And understandably, under US GAAP, you will not have any reversal, you will not have any write-up. So the answer here is letter B. Number 9, which of the following statements concerning the accounting for development costs for internally developed intangible assets other than software under IFRS and US GAAP is correct? Under US GAAP, and IFRS, development costs for internally developed intangible assets other than software are expensed as incurred. That's false because again, it's possible for development costs to be capitalized under IFRS. Letter B, under US GAAP, development costs for internally developed intangible assets other than software must be expensed as incurred. That's true so far. While under IFRS, development costs must be capitalized for internally developed intangible assets. Okay, that can also be true, but again, based on our knowledge on past 38, it's not always. It depends on whether there is already technical feasibility. But let's try to go over the other choices. Under US GAAP and IFRS, development costs must be capitalized. We already know that's wrong because under US GAAP, it must be expensed. Letter D, under US GAAP, development costs must be capitalized for internally developed intangible assets, while under IFRS, development costs for internally developed intangible assets must be expensed as. We also know that to be false. So the best answer here, class, would be letter B. Bravo. Number 10, which of the following statements concerning differences between US GAAP and IFRS is correct? US GAAP and IFRS account for capitalized interest for self-constructed in the same way. Letter B, US GAAP and IFRS both consider asset impairment at the cash generating unit. No, we've mentioned that already. Letter C, fixed asset comprised of separately identifiable components is depreciated as one asset under US GAAP and as separate components under IFRS. Okay, this is correct. This is what we mentioned before. Accounting for research and development expenditures is the same under US GAAP and IFRS. So the answer here is letter C. 11, a company building its own warehouse expects to spend 1 million on the project. It took out a loan for 400,000 to finance part of the construction of the building. It also has taken out loans for general corporate purposes totaling $2 million. Which of the following statements concerning capitalized interest is correct? Under US GAAP, the company could capitalize only the interest of the 400,000 loan, while under IFRS, it would capitalize some interest on both loans. Part of it is true. Letter B, under US GAAP, interest from both loans, while under IFRS, the company could capitalize only the interest on the 400,000 loan. Letter C, under US GAAP, the company could capitalize interest on both loans, while under the IFRS, capitalizing interest on self-constructed asset is prohibited. Letter C is definitely wrong. Under both US GAAP and IFRS, the company could capitalize only the interest on the 400,000 loan. That's also not true. The best answer here, class, would be letter B. Because under US GAAP, interest that could have been avoided if the production or construction of an asset was not undertaken can be capitalized. Okay. And under IFRS, only interest that is directly attributable to the project is capitalized. Okay, so again, answer here is letter B. Under US GAAP, the company could capitalize interest from both loans, while under IFRS, the company could capitalize only the interest on 400,000 loan. You might be confused with letter B because you can recall in your intermediate accounting classes, you have your general borrowings and your specific borrowings. Okay, but again, in your general borrowings, only those portions that are used to finance your construction can be capitalized. Okay. But under US GAAP, even if it's an avoidable interest cost, it may be capitalized. So the best answer here is letter B. Number 12, which of the following statements concerning international financial reporting standards and US GAAP is not correct? Okay, so you'll notice that a lot of questions are framed this way. You will just be asked to determine which one is not correct, which one is correct. So we're looking for an incorrect statement. Letter A, and you'll notice, class, that the choices are just being repeated, class. Under US GAAP and IFRS, research costs are expenses incurred. Is this true? Research cost plus expense for both US GAAP and IFRS? Yes. Research. Yes, both IFRS and US GAAP expenses your research costs. Where do they differ? They differ in your development costs. Letter B, under US GAAP, a company must carry long-lived tangible assets at depreciated cost, while under IFRS, a company can carry long-lived tangible assets at depreciated cost or fair value. Okay, that's true. Letter C, US GAAP and IFRS allows companies to capitalize interest from general purpose loans in the cost of long-lived assets. Again, that's not necessarily true under your IFRS. So the answer here is letter C. Companies can use LIFO under US GAAP but not under IFRS. That is true. Again, answer for number 12 is letter C. Number 13, which of the following is allowable for financial reporting under IFRS? Is LIFO allowed? I cannot emphasize this enough. I'm about to say if you answered LIFO, it's not unforgivable, but you might say, if there's LIFO in the choices, LIFO is the answer. So if you're sure it's not LIFO, then LIFO is the answer. Classification for all leases with terms in excess of 1 year. Yes, we have not mentioned this, but under the IFRS class, if it's less than 1 year, it can be classified as operating lease. Okay, this is a new development under this IFRS 16 class. Extraordinary items. Which of the following is allowable for financial reporting under IFRS? Extraordinary items not allowed. Recoveries class is allowed. Letter D. So the answer is letter D. By the way, letter B, it says in excess. Okay, under the standards class, if it's less than 1 year, it can be classified as operating, not in excess. 1 year or less, operating. So the answer here is letter B. This should be considered as an easy question already for you. 14. Which of the following statements concerning asset impairment under IFRS and US GAAP is correct? Again, a similarly framed question to ones we have already answered. Letter A, US GAAP and IFRS measure asset impairment at the individual asset level. Letter B, US GAAP and IFRS measure asset impairment at CGU level. So basically, A and B are conflicting class. Letter C, US GAAP measures asset impairment at the CGU level, while IFRS measure asset impairment at the individual asset level. We've resolved this issue already. The answer here will be letter D. US GAAP measures asset impairment at the individual asset level, while the standard measures asset impairment at the CGU level. Answer again in 14 is letter B, delta. Number 15. Which of the following statements concerning international financial reporting standards and US GAAP is correct? US GAAP takes a more rules-based approach to accounting, and IFRS takes a more principles-based approach to accounting. Seems true. Let's go over the other choices. Letter B, US GAAP takes a more principles-based, so basically the opposite of letter A. Letter C, both US GAAP and IFRS take a more rules-based, while for letter D, a more principles-based. So which one is true? The answer here is letter A plus. US GAAP rules-based, then IFRS principles-based. Again, 15 is letter A. Number 16, which of the following statements concerning differences between US GAAP and IFRS is correct? US GAAP share-based compensation must be recognized over the service period using the accelerated approach. We've mentioned this already. Under US GAAP, you will be using straight line. Letter B, accounting for research expenditures is the same under US GAAP and IFRS. That's true, but the accounting for development expenditures differs between the two. That's true. Letter B is true. Let's check the other choices first. FIFO is not allowed for inventory valuation purposes under IFRS. That is not true. Letter D, in fact, FIFO is our favorite. If the problem is silent, we will be using first in, first out. Letter D, under US GAAP, goodwill is tested for impairment with a one-step test, while under IFRS, goodwill is tested for impairment with a two-step test. That's wrong. Again, that means the answer here is letter B. Bravo. 17. Which of the following statements concerning the accounting for share-based compensation is correct? US GAAP and IFRS mandate that companies recognize share-based compensation expense on a straight-line basis. That's not correct. US GAAP mandates that companies recognize share-based compensation expense using the accelerated method. That's not correct. US GAAP allows companies to recognize share-based compensation expense on a straight-line basis if elected. That's correct. While IFRS mandates that companies recognize share-based compensation expense using the accelerated method. That's correct. So the answer here is letter C. 18. Caitlin runs a public US company that often does a lot of business with companies in London and Ireland. Sean runs a public company in London that often does business with companies in the US. What is implied here about the reporting standards? Which one will be using GAAP and which one will be using the standards? Where is Caitlin operating the US? So Caitlin will be using GAAP. And then London, so it's in the UK. So you will be using the IFRS. So the answer here is letter A. Number 19, which of the following statements concerning the accounting for? Because I hope you've gotten tired of this topic already. Under IFRS and US GAAP. Letter A, under US GAAP and IFRS, research costs are expenses incurred. Is that true? Yes. Let's go over the other choices. Or let's not. We are sure that the answer here is letter A. So that means B, C, and D must be false. Okay, proceed to number 20. Going over the choices in B, C, and D would be an insult to your intelligence already. Number 20, which of the following statements concerning capitalizing interest under international financial reporting standards? US GAAP allows company to capitalize interest only from loans specifically applicable to construction. This is wrong. We've mentioned US GAAP is more lax concerning the recognition of your capitalizable interest. US GAAP and IFRS allows company to capitalize interest from general purpose loans using cost of long-lived assets. Again, not entirely true for your IFRS. Letter C, US GAAP allows companies to capitalize interest from general purpose loans in the cost of long-lived assets, while IFRS allows companies to capitalize interest only from loans specifically applicable to construction or production of a long-lived assets. Answer here would be letter C. 21, if there's LIFO in the choices, LIFO is the answer. Answer is LIFO. Which of the following? I hope you know how to decide whether to choose LIFO or not. Which of the following inventory methods is not under IFRS? Obviously, this is 22. Which of the following statements concerning accounting for long-lived tangible assets under IFRS? US GAAP is just depreciated cost. Letter B, US GAAP, company must carry long lived tangible assets at depreciated cost, while under IFRS, company can carry long lived tangible assets at depreciated cost or fair value. This is true because I'm not sure if the questions are similar or we've actually answered this earlier. Letter C, under US GAAP and IFRS, a company must carry long-lived tangible assets at depreciated cost. No. Letter D, under US GAAP, a company can carry long-lived tangible assets at depreciated cost or fair value. That's wrong. So the answer here is letter B. Bravo. 23. How does IFRS differ from US GAAP with respect to accounting for development costs? Letter A, US GAAP does not allow capitalization of development costs. That's true. Whereas IFRS does once technological feasibility is established. Is it technological feasibility all along? And I have been saying technical feasibility. You're just cousins. So the answer here would obviously be letter A. It's technological feasibility. Technical feasibility. Technological feasibility. So obviously B, C, and D must be wrong. Plus the answer here is letter A. We're done with 23. Another 23. Okay. Which of the following statements concerning the accounting for share-based compensation under IFRS and GAAP is correct? Answer here, class, would be letter B. Bravo. US GAAP allows companies to use the intrinsic value method to measure share-based compensation in some situations, while IFRS mandates the fair value method. Okay, please absorb this concept. 24. Which of the following statements concerning lease accounting under IFRS and US GAAP is correct? Letter A, IFRS uses the same treatment for all material long-term leases as US GAAP uses for finance lease. Okay, that is correct. Let's try to go over the other choices. IFRS classifies all leases as either finance lease or operating lease, similar to US GAAP. No. IFRS uses the same treatment for all leases as US GAAP uses for operating lease. No. IFRS gives companies more discretion in classifying lease than does US GAAP. No. Answer here again is just letter A. We are now in 25. It's a problem. What's the topic about? This impairment. In January of 20X1, the ABC company purchased equipment for 50,000. On December 31, 20X3, the depreciated cost of the equipment was 40,000, but ABC wrote down the equipment to 24,000 as a result of an impairment review. In 20X4, ABC determined that the impairment was recovered and the depreciated cost of the impairment on December 31, 20X4 would be 35,000 based on the original cost of the asset, or 21,000 based on the impaired value. Further, the fair value of the equipment on December 31, 20X4 is 38,000. How would ABC value the equipment at the end of 20X4 in accordance with US GAAP? So is there a recovery here? It's now 35,000. Okay. So there's a recovery because it's would have been the depreciated cost if it was not impaired is 35,000. But since it was impaired, its depreciated cost now is 21. Okay, so basically, if it was not impaired, its value would be 35,000. Where's the recovery? The fair value of the equipment is at 38,000. So from 50 depreciated to 40 but written down to 24. So the question now is, if its fair value now is 38, at what amount should it be reported? Okay, if it's now at 30, if the fair value is now at 38 plus, that means there is a recovery or improvement. But the question is, are we going to compute it from 24 to 38? Or is it from 21 to 38? Or is it from 24 to 35? Or is it from 24 to 38? Difference between depreciable asset and non-depreciable asset class is that you will have to monitor its depreciated cost, assuming it was not impaired. So if it was not impaired class, its carrying amount, its depreciated cost at the end of 20X4 would have been 35,000. Why is it important for us to monitor the 35,000? It tells us the limit to the amount we can reverse from the previously recognized impairment. But currently, its carrying amount is at 21,000 plus. Okay, but because there's a recovery, we will increase the 21,000. The question now is, do we increase the 21 to 38 or do we increase it to 35? But before we go there, plus why are we using 21 instead of the 24? Because again, even if after it is impaired, you will continue to depreciate the asset. The 24 is no longer relevant. The relevant carrying amount here is the 21. So the 21 now will have to be increased under the IFRS. Since the fair value is at 38, we will increase it by 17, correct? No, because again, 38 goes beyond the would have been depreciated cost. So the limit to your reversal would only be up to 35. So how do you increase 21 to 35? By recognizing a gain on reversal in the amount of 14,000. So the balance under the IFRS should be 35,000. But under your US GAAP class, even if the fair value improves, its carrying amount will remain at 21,000 because no reversal is allowed under US GAAP. So the answer number 25 is letter D, delta. Number 26, which of the following statements concerning the accounting for intangible assets under IFRS and US GAAP is correct? We're talking about amortization of an intangible asset. Answer here, class, would be under US GAAP, intangible assets must be carried at amortized cost, while IFRS allows the company to carry intangible assets at amortized cost or fair value. A fair value or the revalued amount. Okay, so the answer number 26 is delta.